So I work for a firm called Compass Point Consulting. So like Jimmy said, we work with family businesses, and primarily we work on the family, the business, and the strategy, right? So all three domains is what we call them. They all have to work together in order to have a successful family business, just like you know. So anyway, we meet our clients where they're at, right? So we might meet a client and they might not need as much of the leadership work, but they might need to help plan their transition or their next chapter or whatever it may be. So it's different from what I was doing before. Obviously, I'm no longer in a hospital, but it's still people, and you're still, you're still getting to talk to people, learn their stories. And this is a whole different game of feeling fulfillment from families. Like we're helping families make their family business work. And that's a really encouraging thing.
Welcome to YMI Talking, a podcast where the guests are so good, you'll wonder why the host is even talking. In each episode, you will hear one of the leaders of the Lehigh Valley's vibrant business hub. They will tell you the keys to their success, the mistakes they've made, and what they have in store for the future. Here is the host of YMI Talking, from YMI Insurance, Jimmy Honachik.
Right, that is me, Jimmy Honachik, and this is another Why Am I Talking? But this is a new way of doing it. Noelle, you are here.
I am here, and I am new.
You are. We introduced you, I think, in the last episode.
Yes.
So people have an idea of what to expect.
Yes, I know what I look like.
Yes. But you have been an awesome addition.
Thank you.
You've been here, 3 weeks? Maybe?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
And you have helped keep me grounded, which is nice.
I try.
I tell anyone who steps into that role, like, you have to manage up because you have to manage me. You have to figure out how to do that, and you've done a very good job.
No, you have been great at being managed, so thank you for that.
Thank you. But you know, the content has been awesome, and kind of like this episode, the content is awesome.
Yes, it was. It was amazing. She was great.
Yeah, Catherine just is someone who I feel like enters a room and you can feel her presence.
Yeah, she's very warm and personable, and I feel like I could talk to her for a while.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did talk to her.
I know. I literally said, I was like, I'm bummed that this episode's ending.
I know. I was upset too. It was like an advice episode for me. I was just listening to what she was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
is like, for someone like yourself looking to get into sales, it is basically a perfect episode for that.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She walked the walk, can talk the talk, and we're really lucky to have had her.
Yeah. She was wonderful.
Yeah. So maybe we should dive into it.
I think so.
Awesome. All right. Well, without any further ado, we are now going live with Catherine, not her name, Catherine Garrity-Frans.
Yes.
All right. I got it right that time.
You did.
We'll see if we get it right live.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right, we are here with an episode that I know is going to be fantastic. You can feel the energy as soon as she comes into the room, and this is going to be great. Catherine Garrity-Frans from Compass Point Consulting, thank you so much for coming here. I cannot wait to dive into this episode.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Your career has been nothing short of impressive. So I want to start there because we will get to Compass Point. There's a lot to talk about there. But I just feel like people should know where you're coming from. So walk us through how you got to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the Lehigh Valley. I went to Emmaus High School. From there, I went to Bloomsburg University, which is not too far away.
Did you love Bloomsburg?
I did, but I did not when I was viewing it, like touring it.
Oh,
it was not my first choice.
Yeah.
But the tennis coach, I met him and I was like, I need to go here. So, and then I fell in love with the campus and kind of gave me a whole new appreciation for it. But it definitely, it surprised me because it was not on the top of my list.
That's funny.
So, so I went to Bloomsburg, and from college, when I started out, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I applied for speech pathology. Very different from the business world.
Yeah.
And then I switched to business, like right when I started. My tennis coach asked me, "Oh, why speech pathology?" I'm like, I really don't know. And then switched to business. And again, like there's just so many avenues to go business. I'm like, what do I want to do? I did an internship at Olympus, and it was in the IT department, and I hated it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't sit at a desk all day. So I knew I didn't want to do that. And then from there, my next internship was at Uline shipping supplies, and I was in sales, and I loved it. Did not expect to love it. I'm like, this is going to be great. Like, this is what I want to do. So anyway, I accepted a job there post college, and then ended up getting an opportunity at B. Braun Medical for medical device sales, and ended up switching my mind and packed up, moved to Florida. And I worked for B. Braun for a couple years. Great experience. Learned a ton. When I moved down to Florida, I was a sales associate, and then I got a full-time territory in DC. So that's where I continued my career there. So.
And I'm sure you knew a lot about medical devices going into that.
No, a whole lot of none.
So how do you make that? Like, is it fake it till you make it? Like, what did you do to really get yourself comfortable to sell medical devices?
Yeah. So I definitely underestimated how hard it would be. So obviously I had a bit of a business background from what you learn in college. So I started out, everyone says, oh, you don't need to know anything about med device. You just go in and they teach everything you need to know, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
But it's still a lot.
Yeah.
It's still a lot to learn. I remember my first couple weeks of training, I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I just bawled my eyes out all the time. My parents are like, this is not good.
And are you in Florida at this point?
Yes.
So you separated from everything you know and love, and just plunged into the deep end. Yeah,
plunged into the deep end. My now husband, but boyfriend at the time, he was in upstate New York. So we were doing long distance. So that was a whole nother element. And it was tough, but I met some great people down there that really helped me kind of get comfortable and guided me along the way. So
you were telling me about an experience, which I guess is like the final for B. Braun, right? Where you go through and you have to do your final. Tell us a little bit about that experience and kind of how that shaped you.
Yeah. So that one was actually at my more recent job. So I worked for B. Braun for 4 years, and then I transitioned to Boston Scientific, which was a similar role of selling medical devices in a different space. But anyway, we had to do like a final week of training. And in that week, they have this thing called the hot seat. And at any point, they can call you up like in front of the class and all the trainers and put you on this hot seat. So unfortunately, I got put on the hot seat. I think it was Thursday or Friday. It was one of the last days. Yeah. So I had like made it through the whole week without getting on this stupid seat. And anyway, I got put on it and I bombed it. It was a role play it was a doctor, and I had to sell it to him and basically walk him through what to do. And I just did awful. So I sat down, and like everyone in the room knew it was awful. I knew it was awful. I sat down. I'm like, again, holding back my tears. I'm like, don't cry, don't cry. I didn't cry. But they very nicely said, okay, like, what did we learn from that? And I'm just sitting there mortified.
Yeah.
And then they said, okay, does anyone want to come up and do it again? I don't know what came over me, but I shot my hand up. I'm like, I'm going to go again.
Yeah.
And then I'm walking up. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't even know what to say differently than what I did last time. And anyway, so I went again. It was better than the first time. It still wasn't great. But in that moment, I ended up, one of the main trainers that was there, he was presenting at a meeting, like a company-wide meeting we had a couple weeks later. And he had given me a shout out on stage. And I remember like, that was the first time I realized like, wow, like I really did something that I never would have done a couple of years ago, even though I failed, honestly failed twice. But it was the first time where I was like, wow, like I've really grown as a professional, and it's okay to mess up. And like we just said before, like you fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing about that industry is you have patients' lives on the table. Like you can't lie, right? Yeah. So as much as fake it till you make it is the motto, it also has to be like, if you don't know the answer, just say you don't know the answer, and then, continue from there and go find out the answer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm getting, I don't know what the word is, like true bravery out of you, like to pack up and go to Florida, right? With no support system, no family, and launch into a career you knew nothing about. And then to go back on the hot seat, right? Like you could have easily said, nah, that was a bad experience and I never want to do that again. But you didn't. Like, where does that come from? That innate bravery or ability to conquer goals like that?
Yeah, I think honestly, my upbringing, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about, but I grew up with 3 older brothers. So I think that definitely made me a little bit tough, right? And just, I love my brothers to death, but, you say things and boys are different than girls. Even though some of my friends who have sisters, I'm like, oh, I could never do that. So it goes both ways. But yeah, I don't know. I think just a matter of like knowing who I am and wanting people to see me in the way I can see myself. And I'm really competitive. I really don't like to lose. Anyone listening that knows me is probably like, yeah. But anyway, I pride myself on that, and I want to be great at what I do. So
yeah, let's go to your upbringing. Lehigh Valley, born and raised. Tell us kind of what your family situation was like and kind of what shaped you into being this person.
Yeah. So I grew up in the Lehigh Valley, like you said. I went to St. Thomas More. So I have 3 older brothers. My oldest brother is 15 years older than me. And then my other 2 brothers are 2 years and 4 years older than me. Mm-hmm. So essentially, when I was born, there were 4 of us in the house. And then my older brother obviously moved out like soon after, a couple of years after. But anyway, so house was chaotic. My dad at the time was traveling a ton for work. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was like always, he had a great system where he would always be back on the weekends. And he would be back like throughout the weeks too, but he did travel like a decent amount for his work. And anyway, so I went to St. Thomas More for my whole kindergarten through 8th grade, and I loved it. And then I went to Emmaus High School, and I'm like, what is this place? Which I absolutely loved high school. Unpopular opinion. I feel like most people hate high school, but I loved it. And that was truly like my step into the world. I feel like that was the first time I've ever, there's the diversity, the people, the language, the everything. Like you're very sheltered in an environment that you've grown up in your whole life. And then all of a sudden you're in a class with, 30 other people and then a larger class of 600 or 700 people. And it was so, so different. And I really feel like that shaped me to who I am. I really learned my love of people and getting to know people and different types of people when I was there. And I got really into sports and I loved it. So.
And let's talk about sports. So tennis was your big one?
Yes, tennis was my big one.
Did you play all of the sports?
No, I sat bench for basketball.
Oh, I was a bench sitter too. I was really good at it. Yes.
Yeah, I was really good at it. So I'm pretty tall. So everyone expected me to be good, but I was not. Yeah. But I loved basketball. Like I love watching basketball. I was on freshman team, obviously, and there you're pretty good. And then once the years started to go on, I'm like, okay, I'm not good anymore because the competition there is next level and the people are next level. And I feel like high school taught me how to lose because I was no longer the best. Whereas at St. Thomas More, I was the tallest. I was always the starter. Tennis is different, right? Because we didn't have that in grade school. But, I was playing at the clubs and stuff and doing things like that. But yeah, then you go to high school and you realize like, wow, people are really good at sports. Yeah.
But you were good enough then to take tennis to college.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Which was awesome. Yeah. So I was super fortunate for that. When I realized basketball, was not going to be in my future, I still played, but I really focused on tennis. And I ended up meeting the tennis coach at Bloomsburg about, I think it was a year before I graduated. So my junior year. And I really, really liked him. I got to meet some of the team. He was at a local event. They were doing a fundraiser at West End. And anyways, I met him there and I was like, ooh, like it'd be really cool to play in college. And he asked me to send him some tapes. So then I started applying to schools for tennis. And and then I got to play in college, which was incredible. And I feel like my college experience wouldn't have been the same without that. So.
Yeah. And it's almost chicken or egg. Like, are you competitive because you played sports, or were you drawn to sports because of how competitive you are?
That's a great question. I think I like sports because I'm competitive. Yeah. I love it. I love to yell at a TV. I love to yell where I'm at. It's great. So
sales is kind of the perfect, role for someone like that. In your current role, let's talk about, Compass Point a little bit.
Yeah.
It is family consulting for family businesses, right? Give us a little just broad brush sort of what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for a firm called Compass Point Consulting. So like Jimmy said, we work with family businesses, and primarily we work on the family, the business, and the strategy, right? So all three domains is what we call them. They all have to work together in order to have a successful family business, just like So anyway, we meet our clients where they're at, right? So we might meet a client and they might not need as much of the leadership work, but they might need to help plan their transition or their next chapter or whatever it may be. So it's different from what I was doing before. Obviously, I'm no longer in a hospital, but it's still people, and you're still, you're still getting to talk to people, learn their stories. And this is a whole different game of feeling fulfillment from families. Like we're helping families make their family business work. And that's a really encouraging thing. So
how did you find the transition going from medical device sales to this family consulting? That is, not a 180, but definitely a transition. How did that go for you?
Yes, it's definitely a transition. So full disclosure, my dad owns Compass Point. So we are a family business of our own. And I really did not have working for Compass Point on my radar. But in 2020, I was living in DC. And with the shutdowns, I decided to come home for a week, which ended up being much longer than a week. And in that time, obviously, I was living with my mom and dad. And we started having great conversations around Compass Point and what he was doing and the clients that he had and the friends that he was making, because like his friends are his clients, right? And anyway, in that time, I was listening to him on calls, lots and lots and lots of Zoom calls, and just realized, I'm like, wow, this would be really cool to do someday. So we started talking about the opportunity to maybe come work for him someday. Again, was not on the radar at that time, but kind of started talking about a timeline of some sort. And it actually was a couple years from now. And then I sold him to hire me sooner. So your sales background came. Exactly. Yeah. He told me to get into sales. So there we go. But anyway, so he wants to retire at a certain age, and it's, several years from now, but he had that age in mind, and the opportunity for me wasn't going to be for another couple of years. And then I started thinking like, wait a minute, but you're the person who I want to learn everything from and really like experience being a family business together. So that's how I sold him on starting a little bit sooner. So anyway, it's been an awesome transition, different from what I was doing before, like I said, but also I've learned a ton, and I'm continuing to learn a ton. And the people that I work with are amazing, like just so helpful and smart and willing to lend a helping hand no matter what and teach me. And that's something that I didn't necessarily always experience with people in the corporate world. It's much more like, you kind of fend for yourself, and people help you along the way. Absolutely. But this feel of working for a family business consulting firm, like we feel like a family of our own. And I strongly believe in that and believe that.
Yeah. And I mean, your dad is everywhere and knows everybody. But that's one part of running a business. But what I have always found interesting with him is you came in here and articulated the vision and the mission of Compass Point so well. And I think your dad has done that, right? Like that's the strategy, and he's very thoughtful about it.
Absolutely.
And I think that probably carries through to your guys' clients. Like you bring this real thoughtfulness to your clients and the approach there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my dad believes in family more than anything else, right? And that's what we tell our clients. Like, that's why we do what we do, is we believe in family. Every family has its challenges, and our job is that we want to help things work. Like, right. We want businesses to grow. We want them to thrive. 90% of the businesses in the United States are family owned. And, we want to continue that and help people along the way. So. And
you must be in the right place, because, before we do this, I ask you a bunch of questions, and the theme through all of them was family, 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 family.
Yeah.
Talking about your family and your upbringing, talking about starting a family, and your goals there. And it's just clearly at kind of the heart of what you do. So congrats, I think, on finding the right place for you. Does it feel like you've found your home?
It really does. It sounds so cliche, but I really do feel like that. And I told somebody the other day, I'm like, I feel like I am where I belong. And I really love family. I love my own family. I love the family I'm creating with my husband. And I love other people's families. Like I told you, I love seeing like your family in Disney World. I'm like, this is so great. Like that brings me so much happiness. And so it's fun to be living that out each day.
Yeah. I want to get back to sales a little bit, because it's, such a hot topic for people, for listeners. Just advice that you might give, to someone either starting out in sales or someone who wants to kick up their sales abilities. Like what have you found to be successful in those roles?
Yeah, I personally have found that being myself has helped me be successful, right? I mean, if I walk into a room and I'm not myself, which, to be completely honest with you, when I first started, I think I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, and I wasn't super successful with it, right? That's why I was an associate, right? To try to figure out like, okay, you go mess up a few times and then we'll give you the big accounts. But I learned so much in that time about like who I was, and then the sales come with it, right? Like you work hard, and sales is tough, right? Like you're told no so many times. And I feel like at a young age, being out of college, and just, having to be okay with being denied constantly, that's a really tough thing. And it's a tough place to be. But your resilience that you grow over time. And then when you get the win, like my competitive self, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I love this feeling. So I think sales is such a fulfilling thing. Obviously, there's the financial aspect tied to it, as well as just like the good feeling that obviously you're hitting your number, but then you're also, no matter what you're selling, right? You sold something to help people, and specifically a med device. Like that was my passion behind it. Was I was physically looking at somebody, right? Who could have been my mom, my dad, my siblings, somebody else's mom, dad, or siblings, or aunt, uncle, whatever it might be. And really like there was such a passion behind that of like, okay, I know I'm doing something for something bigger than me. And I think when I thought about my career, that's something that always stuck out. Like, yes, like I always want to make sure that I'm doing something that I'm passionate about and that I love, and that's serving a greater good of something that's bigger than myself.
That's great. Who do you think has had the biggest impact on you, whether, during your career or anywhere? I mean, you had the tennis coach who kind of inspired you to go and approach that. I'm sure you've had mentors at each stage. Like, who would you say has had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest impact in my life has been my mom. My mom was just incredible. In the dictionary of incredible would be her name. She was amazing. Like, she was a realtor. She worked so hard. She raised 4 children. She had an incredible marriage with my dad. Like, they were just unstoppable. And I've always looked at their relationship and wanted my own to like model that in certain ways. And the way that she had so many friends from so many different areas and aspects of life. Like, I would just be like, how do you keep up with all these people? And just her way of living. Like, I have a bad habit to think of the future and, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? And she had really helped me like think about, okay, but what if the good part happens, right? Like, what if that happens? What if this happens? Like, stop worrying so much about the future and like be in this season of life. And I know I talked to you a little bit about that beforehand, but you know, I think being content with the season of life that you're in is something that she really, really pushed for me. And it was tough, right? When you're going to college, you're away from your family, and then you move somewhere else, then you move somewhere else. And there's just a lot of change happening. So how do you find the beauty in what you're currently living? She was so awesome at it. And she's definitely who inspired me to be the person that I am. So.
And that's a great way to think about things, right? Because you can look at, you have moved to Florida, you're all by yourself. There are these things that can scare you, or you can try to find the beauty there. And so to have someone who kind of put that in your brain, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So what's next for you? Where do you see yourself going?
Yeah. So what's next is, my husband and I are starting a family. So that's very exciting.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So, so we're having a baby in a couple of months. So that'll be big transitions. Mm-hmm. So when I was listening to all the podcasts, people who have kids, I'm like, okay, I got to talk to this person, or I got to talk to this, I got to talk to you. But anyway, so that's obviously a big transition coming that we're super excited for. And then long term, my goal is that once my dad is ready to retire, that I would be capable enough to take over the business and continue it. And that's a big part of why I decided I wanted to come here where I'm at in life right now, was because I want to continue his legacy and I want to continue what we do to help family businesses. So we currently live in Delaware, so I'm hoping we come back towards the Lehigh Valley, because I really do. I do love it here, and I love the people here. So
I don't want to go off a tangent, but I do love Delaware. We lived in Delaware for 5 years. Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's a cool state that people kind of forget exists.
Yeah, but thinking about the Lehigh Valley too, like there's so much more here. I'll say.
Yes.
It's there's more things to do, right? Yeah. And I find that the community here, not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me, but I really feel like the community in Delaware is very different from the Lehigh Valley. Yeah. And even just in terms of work events and networking, people here are different. And I feel like that's why I love coming back here. So.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite things to do here?
Well, I love Dorney Park. When I was pulling up across the street, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't been there in years, but I used to go there all the time. I really, really love Bethlehem. The food scene's awesome. I feel like every time I come, there's a new restaurant around. I hear there's a Topgolf coming. So I'm very excited for that. I feel like I love the people here. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Obviously the people we work with, the clients we work with, the friends I have here that still live here. I love it. And my favorite thing of all is my childhood home that I grew up in. So that's right down the street from here.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So I love my home. Yeah. A lot of memories.
Yeah. So. Compass Point is, based in the Lehigh Valley. And I think most of your clients are probably in this area, but do you go beyond the Lehigh Valley? I think you guys expand beyond that.
We do. Yep. So we're, our firm is based in the Mid-Atlantic. So excuse me. We're in the Mid-Atlantic, and we have clients pretty much all over. A lot are in the Lehigh Valley, but we are expanding a lot in like the Philadelphia suburb area, Lancaster area. That's where a lot of our newer clients are at as well, which is great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you guys. All right. It kills me whenever I am enjoying a conversation this much, and then I'm like, wait, we have to wrap it up.
Man.
I got 2 things I want to hit you with.
All right.
The first one is we are sponsored by Hocus Pocus Cleaning Services. It's incredible. They do an amazing job. They just cleaned my house recently, and they clean our offices. And they do something, if you're a disorganized person, they can come in and redo your whole closet.
Why are you looking at me?
And it's truly magical. And so I like to ask all of our guests, if you could have one magical ability, what would it be?
my magical ability would be to fly.
Oh.
I would love.
I've never heard someone say that.
No, that makes me so happy. I love the idea of being able to go anywhere and be with anybody and then be able to come back to wherever your home is or whatever and just be with people.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to fly.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Great answer.
Having just been in Disney and being on rides that feels like flying, I could go for
right?
that too.
Except not the Orlando plane ride home. I'm sure that wasn't fun.
No, I have stories I'll tell you offline.
Yeah.
My family's lucky to be alive right now. And then, the last thing I want to do is just turn it over to you. Is there anything that we didn't hit, anything about Compass Point, anything about you, your family that we should have talked about?
I do have one story I want to tell.
Yes.
So my mom passed away in 2021. And before she passed, we knew that the time was coming. And her brother, my Uncle Bill, and my Aunt Linda had basically, the whole family's just in like disbelief that this is happening, right? And we had the timeline and stuff. So they chartered us a private jet and they got us this insane home in Marco Island, Florida. And they flew my whole family down there as a final trip for my mom and for our family too. My husband actually ended up proposing to me there so she could be a part. That was not his plan, but when the timeline started, he was like, I'm going to do this now. Obviously I didn't know at the time, but anyway, he proposed to me there. So my mom was able to be there for that. And that experience is seriously like one of the happiest moments of my life. And I think about what my family like talked about and spent time together, like through that short amount of time. I think we were there. We were supposed to go for a week, but we ended up only being able to stay for 4 days because my mom was getting progressively worse. But we had a private jet that could take us home. And it was just the most incredible thing. And my Uncle Bill actually ended up passing very shortly after my mom, which was tragic. And my Aunt Linda is still here and she's super healthy. And, her and my Uncle Bill are like the most generous people that I have ever known in my life. And for them to do that, like for our family, it's like unexplainable. I don't even know how to talk about it because it was the most incredible trip ever. And I guess this is a thank you to my Aunt Linda and my Uncle Bill. But I just I always want to tell people that story because I'm like giving to people, and it's made me want to give back to people. Obviously, I can't afford that, but I think the generosity and the importance of family that both my aunt and uncle believed in, and they knew like how amazing that would be for my mom. My mom loved the beach. We go to the beach every year as a family. So they wanted to give her one last trip to the beach.
Wow.
It's my favorite story.
There's nothing I can say to like close out on that. That's incredible. And I think it speaks to, like you said, giving of yourself and being there for others and the ripple effect. Like you're still talking about this. It made such a difference on you and your worldview, and like those acts of kindness, they travel a long way.
They really do. Yeah. So,
well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your stories. This was incredible. And Catherine, I can't say thank you enough.
Awesome. Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the YMI Talking Podcast. If you enjoyed this and want to hear more content from amazing personalities in the Valley, please subscribe, leave a rating, and drop us a quick review.